In 1991, a visitor to Hawaii, Dana Ireland, was kidnapped, raped, and murdered. The man who left his DNA, bite mark, and T-shirt at the crime has neither been arrested nor identified. He walks the land, free to kill again. The 3 local men convicted of Dana's murder are innocent. They had nothing to do with this shocking crime. The Hawaii state motto is, "The life of the land is perpetuated in righteousness." Righteousness includes justice. Justice for Dana demands that her killer be captured and the 3 wrongfully convicted men be exonerated. Welcome to Who Killed Dana Ireland? Part 1 of Justice for Dana, a presentation by Judges for Justice. On December 24th, 1991, about 5 p.m., 23-year-old Dana Ireland was riding her bicycle on the Big Island of Hawaii. She was almost to her parents' rental house where the Ireland family was going to have Christmas Eve dinner. In a split second, everything changed. A motor vehicle approached her from behind and moved into the left oncoming lane as if to give the cyclist plenty of room. Tire tracks left at the scene indicate that when the vehicle was close to her, the driver accelerated and swerved into Dana, crushing her and the bicycle. A local resident, Anna Sherrill, was the first to discover the collision. She called emergency services at 5:25 p.m.
There's a bicycle completely crushed there. The girl's shoes out in the street. Some of her hair ripped off her from the impact. I can't see a body.
1 minute after Anna Sherrill's call, the emergency dispatcher received a call from Dana's father, John Ireland.
She has blonde hair. She is 23 years old. There's pieces of her hair, a shoe, and no sign of her. Somebody has taken her somewhere. There's been nobody there. All that we've seen is a bike in the road.
After being run over, Dana is taken to an isolated and remote location, 4.5 miles away. There, she is sexually assaulted and left to die. Dana died from her injuries in the Hilo Hospital operating room at 12:25 a.m. Christmas morning, 1991. The state of Hawaii is made up of 8 main islands. The largest of these is the island of Hawaii, often called the Big Island. On the east side of the island is the largest city and county seat, Hilo. South of Hilo is the Puna district. Dana was assaulted in the Kapoho area, 30 miles south of Hilo, just off Highway 137 on a street named Kapoho Kai Drive. Dana is attacked near the intersection of Kapoho Kai Drive and Ililani Road. This is Crime Scene 1. This is a view of the intersection in 2018. We are looking west up Kapoho Kai Drive with Ililani Road coming in from the north on our right. The white Ford SUV is the approximate location where Dana Ireland was struck by the vehicle. In 1991, both Ililani and Kapoho Kai were dirt roads. After being struck by the vehicle, Dana is taken 5 miles away to a remote fishing trail in Wawa. There she's dumped in the jungle, sexually assaulted, and left to die. We call this Crime Scene 2. Eight years after the crime, in 1999 and 2000, 3 local men, Frank Pauline Jr. and 2 brothers, Albert Ian Schweitzer and Shawn Schweitzer, were convicted of this shocking crime. In separate trials, juries found Ian Schweitzer and Frank Pauline guilty of kidnapping, rape, and murder. Shawn Schweitzer pled guilty to manslaughter and kidnapping. None of the 3 defendants matched a bite mark or the DNA left on Dana's body. How did this happen? Let's go back to Christmas, 1991. Almost immediately, the police had a suspect. At about the time of the crime, 3 witnesses saw a man with a pickup truck at the first crime scene. One of the police officers that responded to Crime Scene 1 was Officer Marzo. On page 5 of his report, he wrote, according to Carl Smith, they observed the pickup truck at the intersection of Kapoho Kai Drive and Ililani Road at around 1700 hours. He then concludes, with this information provided to me, I strongly believe that the vehicle described by and Carl Smith is the suspect's vehicle. The police started stopping pickup trucks matching the description of the suspect's vehicle. The lead detective was Stephen Guillermo. He was interviewed in 2004 by A&E.
I spent somewhere near the first month and a half stopping trucks and talking to people and taking a look at their trucks.
The pickup truck was one of hundreds of leads that never panned out. In June of 1994, 2.5 years after the murder, there was a major breakthrough. A man named Frank Pauline Jr. confessed to being involved in the crime. He said that Albert Ian Schweitzer and Shawn Schweitzer, 2 brothers, were also involved with him. Frank Pauline said on the day of the crime he was with the 2 brothers driving around smoking crack in their 1957 Volkswagen Bug. They saw Dana Ireland riding her bike, ran her over, put her in the VW trunk, and took her to another location where she was raped. The police wasted little time in attempting to connect the 3 local men to the murder. The killer, or at least one of the killers, had bitten Dana on the left breast. The police obtained search warrants and bite mark exemplars of the 3 suspects, Frank Pauline, Albert Ian Schweitzer, and Shawn Schweitzer. In July of 1994, the bite mark exemplars were submitted for analysis to nationally recognized forensic odontologist Dr. Norman Sperber of San Diego. However, Dr. Sperber's report comes back negative. The teeth of Frank Pauline, Albert Ian Schweitzer, or Shawn Schweitzer did not create the bite mark on the left breast of Dana Ireland. There is no match. In January of 1996, there was another setback. Frank Pauline recanted his confession. He claimed he had lied to get himself out of the Oahu prison where drug dealers were threatening his life. He also said he wanted to help his half-brother, John Gonsalves, get off of a drug charge. Here is Detective Guillermo in a 2004 interview.
He did mention that John was about to stand trial for a drug case that he had, and he had hoped that maybe him providing some information may help John in the case.
In a 2004 interview, Frank Pauline stated,
"Make a story up, help him, help myself, before I end up getting killed. I love my brother, you know what I mean? But yet I was kind of scared, but I told him, whatever, you know what I mean? What you like me do? He said, just keep watching the news whenever they talk about the case."
In September of 1998, vaginal swabs and Dana's gurney sheet were submitted to the Forensic Analytical Laboratory in California for DNA analysis. An independent expert, agreed to by the court, prosecution, and defense, was able to obtain a full DNA profile. Forensic scientist Lisa Calandro found that Frank Pauline, Ian Schweitzer, and Shawn Schweitzer were eliminated as the source of the sperm found on the gurney sheet and the vaginal swabs. The report was a setback for the prosecution. As a result, the charges against Ian Schweitzer and Shawn Schweitzer were dismissed in October of 1998. Dr. Edward Blake was the DNA expert for Frank Pauline's defense.
I assumed that the case would be dismissed, that it would never go to trial. I just thought that it was crazy You couldn't possibly, under this set of circumstances, go to trial. How wrong I was.
Law enforcement also felt they had a problem. Here is Detective Guillermo in a 2004 interview.
The semen sample that was found, it didn't come back to either one of the three people that were suspected. Problematic, initially, yes.
In February of 1999, Deputy Prosecuting Attorney Lincoln Ishida wrote that law enforcement had consistently believed that a fourth person may have been present and participated. Now the lack of a DNA match was less of a problem. Plus a new witness came forward, an inmate in a Minnesota prison. The Schweitzer brothers were re-indicted in May of 1999. After the DNA tests eliminated the defendants, 3 witnesses came forward to connect Frank Pauline to a T-shirt found at Crime Scene 2. A blue Jimmy Z brand T-shirt was found near Dana. The T-shirt was soaked in her blood. The prosecution's case alleged that defendant Frank Pauline was wearing the blue T-shirt during the murder and left it behind. Even though Pauline had recanted, this was potent evidence that his confession was true. Three incarcerated felons came forward and testified against the defendants. An example was Shayne Kobayashi, who testified at Frank Pauline's trial. His 10-year sentence for sexual assault was reduced to 3 in exchange for his testimony.
Kobayashi had his own trouble with the law. He was convicted of sex assault in 1995. He served just 3 years of a 10-year sentence in exchange for his testimony.
Sir, you have a deal, an agreement with the government in this case. Is that correct?
Yes, I do.
Matter of fact, you have a felony conviction record, correct?
Yes, I do.
On August 27, 1999, the jury found Frank Pauline guilty of kidnapping, murder in the second degree, and sexual assault. There's no death penalty in Hawaii. He is sentenced to 180 years in prison. According to the jury forewoman, Lisa Kaneshiro, the jury decided quickly that the T-shirt soaked in Dana Ireland's blood belonged to Frank Pauline. In 2004, she was asked how Pauline was convicted without any DNA evidence.
All the really compelling evidence, like the bloody T-shirt, the Volkswagen that was repainted, the testimony of Frank Pauline himself, Lieutenant Guillermo's testimony, all these people, all these pieces of evidence together finally overpowered any indecision we might have about the DNA.
On January 24, 2000, Albert Ian Schweitzer's trial started in Hilo. The key witness was an incarcerated felon by the name of Michael Ortiz. Ortiz testified that Ian had confessed to him that he had accidentally run over Dana with his 1957 Volkswagen Bug. According to Ortiz, Ian confessed while they both were in the same jail. Also testifying were 3 witnesses from the Pauline trial. They testified that the blue T-shirt found next to Dana at Crime Scene 2 belonged to Frank Pauline. On February 15, 2000, the jury found Ian Schweitzer guilty on all 3 counts of murder, kidnapping, and sexual assault. He was sentenced to 130 years in prison. Next up was Shawn Schweitzer, but he didn't go to trial. On April 17, 2000, the prosecution and defense announced they had arrived at a plea agreement. Shawn Schweitzer agreed to plead guilty to kidnapping and manslaughter. In exchange, the prosecutor would recommend a 1-year sentence with 5 years probation. Shawn had already served 1 year waiting for trial. On April 17, 2000, he walked out of jail a free man. Shortly after the change of plea and Shawn's release from jail, Deputy Prosecutor Lincoln Ishida issued a press release stating that Shawn Schweitzer had given a full and detailed confession on March 23rd and had passed a lie detector administered by the state's Attorney General office. On May 9, 2000, Shawn Schweitzer appeared for sentencing. He admitted to being in the car when his brother ran Dana Ireland over. He said Frank Pauline was responsible for the kidnapping and rape. There was no mention of a fourth attacker. The judge sentenced Shawn Schweitzer to 5 years probation. After the sentencing, Deputy Prosecutor Lincoln Ishida spoke to the press. When asked about the DNA problem, he offered that he thought the DNA belonged to Frank Pauline. He thought that because it was a degraded and a small sample, it gave a false reading. He said his office would check with the lab for an explanation. Today, thanks to advanced touch DNA testing, we know the touch DNA from perspiration on the T-shirt does not match Frank Pauline, nor does it match Albert Ian Schweitzer or Shawn Schweitzer. The DNA from the T-shirt, however, is a match to the DNA from the sperm. The DNA profile has been submitted to the National CODIS Databank by Hawaii County Law Enforcement. To date, there has been no match. This information is too late for Frank Pauline. In April of 2015, he was murdered in a New Mexico state prison by another prisoner. But it is not too late for Albert Ian Schweitzer. He remains in prison. Part 1 of Justice for Dana is entitled, Who Killed Dana Ireland? Who is the man who left his DNA, bite mark, and T-shirt at the crime? This presentation hopes to help solve that mystery. Part 2 of Justice for Dana will show why the convictions of Frank Pauline Jr., Albert Ian Schweitzer, and Shawn Schweitzer were miscarriages of justice. My name is Michael Heavey. I'm a retired judge. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Judges for Justice. First of all, it is not our intent to criticize any of the participants in this case, past or present. Hindsight is always 20/20. To err is human. We learn by error. It is simply progress towards truth. Judges for Justice was involved in the Chris Tapp case in the state of Idaho. Chris had spent over 20 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. The freeing of an innocent person is a team effort, a bucket brigade. Tapp's bucket brigade included many, notably the victim's mother, Carol Dodge, his attorney, John Thomas, the Idaho Innocence Project, the Center on Wrongful Convictions, and the New York Innocence Project. In April of 2013, I lectured at the University of Hawaii Richardson School of Law on wrongful convictions and the Amanda Knox case. I was sponsored by the Hawaii Innocence Project. Through that connection, we learned about the Dana Ireland case. We, as human beings, understand crime at varying levels. We understand greed, lust, and anger towards others. We understand when two men get in a bar fight and one kills the other. We don't like it, but we understand. We say to ourselves, I don't hang out in bars and I don't get in fights, so that crime does not affect me. But when a young woman is a victim of a sexual homicide, she's brutally attacked and then sexually assaulted while she lays dying, that is a different story. It is so deviant as to be outside of normal comprehension. Sexual homicides are somewhat rare. Most police departments will never investigate one, but not so with the Behavioral Science Unit of the FBI. Since the 1970s, they have investigated, consulted on, or studied thousands of sexual homicides. They have interviewed these killers in prison. They are the experts. Judges for Justice has been investigating the Dana Ireland murder since 2014. We have coupled our investigation with FBI expertise on sexual homicides. As a result, we have come up with several promising leads, powerful clues that can lead to the identification and apprehension of the man who left his DNA and bite mark on Dana Ireland. He can be identified and captured today, over 26 years after the crime. First, Judges for Justice believes that the killer knew Dana, or more accurately, knew who she was. He had been watching her. He may have been a voyeur, a peeping Tom. Second, the killer lived close to Dana while she was staying with her sister Sandy Ireland and Sandy's boyfriend, Jim Ingham. We believe he may have lived next door. We came to these conclusions by making deductions from the evidence and studying FBI profiling on sexual homicides. Before we look at what we can learn from the experts, let's look at the evidence. In a 2004 interview with the A&E channel, lead detective Guillermo explained the route of the killer's vehicle. In this segment, he is explaining what the tire tracks in the road indicated. He is looking west on Kapoho Drive. The killer's vehicle and Dana on her bike were approaching this location, both traveling east.
They were traveling down this road, and you could see the acceleration marks veer off towards the right side of the roadway.
This is a 2018 view looking west up Kapoho Drive. Ililani Road is on our right and north. You can see a white Ford SUV parked close to where Dana was run over. Rod Thompson was a reporter for the Honolulu Star-Bulletin newspaper. He covered the Dana Ireland case. In a 2011 interview, he is explaining what the tire tracks indicated.
The only likely thing that a swerve would mean is that someone deliberately swerved. It gave a high degree of suspicion that it was a deliberate intent to hit the bicyclist.
On December 24, 1991, Anna Sherrill was living in the Kapoho Vacationland subdivision. A little after 5 p.m., she loaded her van with trash and headed for the landfill. Anna was the first person to recognize that there was something seriously wrong. Anna filled out a diagram for us to help explain what she saw at Crime Scene 1, the intersection of Kapoho Drive and Ililani Road. Anna first noticed a white tennis shoe, a left shoe still tied. She marked the approximate location on the diagram with the initials TS. She saw a mangled bike on the side of the road. She has marked the mangled bike location on the diagram with a Y. She also saw a foot-long shock of hair. She marked its proximate location with a capital B. She also saw a wristwatch. She marked its location with a W on the diagram. She saw tire tracks 10 inches wide and acceleration marks where the tires had spun. It looked to her as if a car had started on the other side of the road, then accelerated and collided with the bicycle. Anna drew the location of the tire tracks and acceleration marks on the diagram. There was a gouge in the road where the bike had been driven into the dirt. She marked the gouge, the point of impact, with an X. Anna also saw tire tracks indicating the vehicle spun out doing a U-turn. We asked her to leave those out of her diagram. The motor vehicle assault was described using graphics in a 2011 video, Island of Lies. The narrator is explaining what lead detective Guillermo observed.
He notices the vehicle's tire marks come from the wrong side of the road, then sharply swerve.
A reasonable inference from the tire track evidence is that the driver recognized the bicycle rider. He saw it was Dana Ireland. When he saw it was Dana, he accelerated and intentionally ran her over. This was not a random crime. He knew her. Kapoho Drive is the only way in or out of the Kapoho Vacationland subdivision. The main reason to be eastbound is to access a residence within that subdivision. A fair inference from this evidence is the killer lived in the subdivision. He may have lived close to Jim Ingham and Sandy Ireland, Dana's sister. Since its founding in 1908, the Federal Bureau of Investigation has evolved into one of the most respected and sophisticated law enforcement agencies in the world. In 1972, the FBI formed the Behavioral Science Unit. These agents started profiling criminals on an informal basis. They used crime scene information to deduce certain offender characteristics. They started seeing common patterns. These patterns and characteristics proved useful in identifying offenders. Soon, local authorities were requesting assistance in increasing numbers. From this, the FBI's Criminal Profiling Service became available to all law enforcement agencies. The book, Sexual Homicide, Patterns and Motives, by Ressler, Burgess, and Douglas, is described in an FBI law enforcement bulletin. Sexual homicide offers an enlightening and practical, yet academically sound view from the law enforcement investigator's viewpoint, a powerful tool for identifying and apprehending sexual killers. The book notes how sexual homicides often receive widespread publicity and create a great deal of fear in the affected community because they appear to be random and motiveless, offering few clues to the killer's identity. The FBI classifies sexual homicides on a continuum. On one end is the organized sexual homicide. On the other is the disorganized sexual homicide. The serial killer is an organized sexual killer. He has a plan and he leaves little evidence. On the other end is the disorganized killer. His crime is spontaneous. He has no plan to avoid detection. He usually leaves evidence. Dana's murder is a disorganized crime. On page 131 of the book, Sexual Homicide, Patterns and Motives, the attack of the disorganized killer is described. The offender kills instantly to have control. He cannot take the risk that the victim will get the upper hand. The offender uses a blitz style of attack for encountering the victim. He either approaches the victim from behind, suddenly overpowering her, or kills suddenly, as with a gun. The attack is a violent surprise, occurring out of the blue and in a location where the victim is going about his or her usual activities. The victim is caught completely off guard. The description of the disorganized killer's attack describes the Dana Ireland assault perfectly. The FBI associates a number of characteristics to the disorganized sexual killer. Among them, he lives or works near the crime scene. Another characteristic, the killer knows the victim. We have previously postulated that the killer was on Kapoho Kai Drive because it is the only way to access the subdivision. Therefore, he probably lived within the Kapoho Vacationland subdivision. The FBI profiled that the disorganized sexual offender lives or works near the crime scene supports our premise. There is a probability the perpetrator lived in the subdivision. Based upon tire track evidence, we have theorized the offender knew Dana. He attacked when he saw the bike rider was Dana Ireland. This conclusion is supported by the FBI profile of a disorganized sexual killer. He knows his victim. Before we discuss how these insights may be used to identify the killer, we need to look at more evidence. About 5 p.m. on December 24, 1991, three individuals, Lee Schaller, Eric Carlsmith, and Karina, saw a young boy, a bareback man, and a dark, older pickup truck at Crime Scene 1, the intersection of Kapoho Kai and Ililani. Eric and Karina actually observed the shirtless man place a human being into the bed of the pickup truck. Officer Wagner of the Hawaii Police Department was one of the first officers at Crime Scene 1. He spoke to Eric Carlsmith. Eric related that about 1700 hours on this day, he was in front of his residence on Ililani Road. He noticed a pickup truck parked at the intersection of Ililani Road and Kapoho Kai Drive, facing the southwest direction. 1700 hours is 5 p.m. Sunset in Kapoho on December 24th is approximately 5:50 p.m. Detective Kuali'i was one of the detectives assigned to help Detective Guillermo. On page 8 of his report, Kuali'i notes that Eric Carlsmith and his girlfriend, Kahi stopped at their driveway on Ililani Road and were looking at a pickup truck at the intersection of Ililani Road and Kapoho Kai Drive. Eric told the detective that he saw a human being carried and put into the bed of the truck. Prominent was the left leg. Eric was adamant that he saw a human being placed into the truck. On page 9 of the detective's report, Carlsmith indicated that he is certain that what he had observed was the bare leg/foot of a human being from the knee to the toe, and that it was white-skinned. Dana Ireland was wearing shorts, tennis shoes with no socks. Her left shoe, still tied, was on the road at Crime Scene 1. Let's digest this for a moment. Eric saw a white-skinned left leg from knee to toe. There's a simple conclusion that follows from this evidence. Eric Carlsmith saw Dana Ireland being put into the bed of the killer's pickup truck. Carlsmith further reported that a barebacked man appeared and stared at him and Karina for about a minute. Then the man started putting roadside grass or shrubbery into the bed of the truck. After seeing the man, he saw a young boy between the ages of 9 and 11 walk towards the back of the truck. Then the boy entered the truck from the passenger side. The man entered the truck and drove off westbound. Carlsmith reported that later he and his girlfriend drove by the intersection of Ililani Road and Kapoho Kai Drive. He saw a tennis shoe and prominent skid marks on the south side of Kapoho Kai Drive. Detective Kuali'i notes that Eric Carlsmith originally did not disclose his full knowledge of what he had observed to the police because of his fear of his identity being revealed and retaliatory measures taken against him. Eric Carlsmith was an unemployed auto mechanic. Carlsmith described the truck as being a dark, aqua greenish blue Datsun pickup truck, possibly a 1974 to 1978 model, with black primer spots. Towards the bottom of page 10, Carlsmith describes the driver of the pickup truck. On page 11 of the report, Carlsmith described the boy. He described the young boy as being 9 to 10 years of age, having a skinny build, standing about 3 feet 10 inches in height, light-skinned, and had straight, shoulder-length brown hair. At noon on December 25, 1991, Detective Kuali'i interviewed another person who saw the bareback man, boy, and pickup truck at the intersection of Kapoho Kai Drive and Ililani Road. His name was Lee Schaller, a 50-year-old man who lived in the Kapoho Vacationland subdivision. Detective Kuali'i noted, Schaller indicated that on the date of this incident, at 16:30 hours or thereabout, he was traversing Kapoho Kai Drive, proceeding in the Mauka direction en route to the rubbish dump. Stated that as he approached and eventually passed Ililani Road, he focused his attention first on a male person, appearing to be local and barebacked, and a bike on the south Kalapana side of the road. He also observed an old model pickup truck, possibly rust or gray in color, positioned on the northwest side of the intersection of Kapoho Kai Drive and Ililani Road. He indicated that this particular truck was facing toward Kapoho Kai Drive. Lee Schaller further reported to the detective. He stated that the local male appeared to have just exited the truck and was directing his movement toward the bicycle on the roadway. Stated that he also observed a young boy, approximately 10 to 12 years of age, walking toward the truck from the immediate area of where the bike was situated. Lee Schaller's observations are powerful corroboration of Eric Carlsmith's testimony. On page 7 of Detective Cooley's report, he indicates that Lee Schaller had interacted with Eric Carlsmith. That Carlsmith had told Schaller that he saw a lowrider truck at the intersection and a male person place something in the bed of the truck. The third person to see the pickup truck, bareback man, and the young boy at crime scene 1 was Eric Carlsmith's girlfriend, Karina. The report of Detective J. Coloma notes that Karina, along with Eric Carlsmith, observed a Datsun pickup truck, like a lowrider, with black bondo and primer with turquoise patches, situated within the Ililani Street and Kapoho Kai intersection. Karina told Detective Coloma she observed the pickup truck at crime scene 1, the intersection of Kapoho Kai Drive and Ililani Road. Karina described the driver. She described a male driver who was on the other side of the pickup truck standing by the bed as having a dark complexion, approximately 5 feet 10 inches to 5 feet 11 inches tall, 180 pounds, black, short hair, no facial hair. Detective Coloma also noted that she described a young male. She stated that there appeared to be a young male, approximately 10 or 11 years old. He went into the pickup truck through the passenger door. On December 19, 2017, I interviewed Karina in Honolulu. She asked that we blur her face. She is concerned for her safety. Let's start by saying your name and your address, please.
My name is Karina. I live in Honolulu.
Karina gave a little background about herself.
I grew up on the big island of Hawaii. We were raised living off the land, so we were foliage pickers. My dad guys taught us how to farm, do farming, do foliage, like pick mighty up in the forest. And he also taught us how to fish and hunt.
What area of the Big Island did you live in?
Kalapana.
Kalapana?
And Pahoa.
And Pahoa. How far is Kalapana from Pahoa?
About 10 miles.
About 10 miles. Same area, Puna area?
Yes.
Puna district. Karina related how she and her boyfriend, Eric Carlsmith, were approaching their driveway on Ililani Road about 5 p.m. on December 24, 1991. As they approached, they noticed a truck parked down the road. You've made an arrow at the proximate location of your driveway, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so as you approached that driveway, what happened?
We noticed a truck parked down the road.
Did you stop on Ililani Road?
Yeah, we stopped and we watched whatever they were doing.
So you stopped at your driveway and you looked down?
Yes.
I had earlier asked Karina to draw on Exhibit B a rectangle where the pickup truck was located in relation to Ililani Road and Kapoho Kai Drive. On Exhibit B, you've drawn a rectangle representing the truck and the direction it was facing southwest, and it's on the north side of Kapoho Kai Drive, and it's on Ililani Road. Is that correct?
Yes.
You're coming down the road and then you stopped at your driveway and you look ahead. Just start over and tell me that story. Tell me what happened.
We noticed a truck parked in the down road.
Okay.
So we stopped and we just watched and observed whatever they were doing.
And for about how long did you watch that truck?
Maybe 5 or 10 minutes.
She then stated she saw a man put a kid into the bed of the truck. And what did you see?
I saw a guy, looked like a brown guy, on the driver's side behind by the truck. Pick up, like, it looked like a kid, and he put it behind the truck in the bed.
In the police reports, Eric Carl Smith reported seeing a white-skinned left leg from knee to toe placed into the bed of the truck. I asked Karina what color was the kid she saw placed into the bed of the truck. You saw him place in the bed of the truck a kid?
Looked like a kid.
And what color did you see, the legs, or do you remember?
No, I didn't remember what color. I know he looked like a kid from a distance.
So you saw a man. Did he have a shirt on, or was he shirtless?
Looked like he never had a shirt on.
So he was barebacked?
Yes.
Karina also observed a young boy with the man. Did you see anybody else there?
There was a little kid.
And what did he look like?
He looked like a little brown kid. And he ran around the truck from the driver's side to the passenger side, in the front side.
He ran around behind the truck or the front of the truck?
The front of the truck.
And got in the passenger side?
Yes.
And what did the man look like?
He looked like a big male. And like from a distance, he looked like he had like curly hair. And kind of big, maybe 200 something pounds.
You remember how tall?
Maybe 5'9" or 5'11".
After observing the truck, man, and boy for 5 to 10 minutes, Eric and Karina drove down their driveway and entered their house. They hung out. After a while, they drove by the intersection. What did that mean, take a cruise?
Just go down the road and park at the beach and drink a couple beers.
Okay. So, did you notice anything when you drove by the intersection at Ililani and Kapoho Kai?
Yeah, Eric, on the way down the road, Eric was like, "Oh, look like your shoe." And then I was like, "Oh yeah, that looks like my shoe."
And what kind of shoe was it?
It was like a white shoe. Like a
athletic shoe, tennis shoe?
Athletic shoe.
And that was on the side of the road or in the middle of the road?
It was like in the middle side of the road.
Okay, so you go down beach in Vacationland, drink a few beers, and what happens when you come back?
We come back and then there's this guy. He's like, "Stop, stop. Somebody's missing, somebody's missing." And we're like, "What?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, somebody's missing. Did you guys see her? Did you guys see her?" We're like, "No." And Eric was like, "Oh, is it by that white shoe?" And he was like, "Yeah." It was like this white guy who was yelling at us.
And how old was he?
Probably in his 40s.
Judges for Justice believes that the white man yelling at Eric and Karina was Lee Schaller. How many times do you think you talked to the police in, say, that first couple weeks?
A bunch of times, probably more than 5 times.
Karina knew Frank Pauline. He had been a classmate in school. She also knew Ian Schweitzer and Shawn Schweitzer. Did you know Frank Pauline?
Yes.
And how did you know him?
He was my classmate in school.
And did you know Ian Schweitzer?
Yes.
Albert Ian Schweitzer?
Yes.
And was he older or younger than you?
He was older.
And what about Shawn Schweitzer? Did you know Shawn?
Yes, he was
Shawn,
younger.
He's younger. Did the man you saw at the intersection look like Frank Pauline?
No.
Did he look like Ian Schweitzer?
No.
Did he look like Shawn Schweitzer?
No.
At any time while you're looking down there, that you're parked at your driveway, looking down at the intersection of Ililani Road and Kapoho Kai Drive, did you see a purple VW Bug driving around?
No.
Did you see any other cars?
No.
Just the pickup truck and, of course, the Jeep you were sitting in, correct?
Yes.
Lee Schaller, Eric Carlsmith, and Kahi did not testify at either the Frank Pauline or Ian Schweitzer trials. Were you called as a witness to the trial?
No.
Describe the pickup truck to the best you can.
It's a dark truck. It's a far distance, so it looked like a little lowrider, not a regular looking truck, just a regular bus-up kind of truck.
After our interview, Kahi took a picture of a truck at a local shopping mall. The truck she saw at Crime Scene 1 back in 1991, she says, is similar looking to this truck. At Crime Scene 2, a woman named Ida Smith found Dana. According to the police reports, Ida had returned home in Wawa about 5:30 p.m. and started making dinner. She heard Dana's cries for help and found her about 100 yards from her house. Ida had no telephone, but was able to flag down passerbys who reported the situation to police. Officer Harold Pinow was one of the first officers to Crime Scene 2, and he interviewed Ida. Ida had asked Dana, "Who did this to you?" During the trial of Frank Pauline, Officer Pinow testified that Ida Smith had told him on December 24, 1991, that Dana said either a friend or a friend of a friend attacked her. If this is correct, it indicates Dana knew her attacker by sight, but not his name. It also indicates that Dana saw only one attacker. Dana's statement that it was either a friend or a friend of a friend who had attacked her fits the FBI description of the relationship between the offender and the victim. Greg McCrary is a retired FBI supervisory special agent. Mr. McCrary has been investigating violent crime, including sexual homicides, for over 40 years. For 10 years as an FBI special agent, he traveled the United States, Canada, and Europe as an FBI profiler, assisting local police departments in the apprehension of violent criminals. In this 2015 interview, he talks about the disorganized sexual homicide, how the killer is a single offender, how he attacks, and the relationship between the victim and the perpetrator.
This is a disorganized sexual homicide. The FBI has investigated or consulted on hundreds, if not thousands, of these types of cases over the years. They typically involve a lone offender, that is a single offender, who approaches in sort of a blitz-style attack, that is the immediate application of physical force to control the victim. And typically that type of offender may be acquainted with the victim, but the victim may or may not be acquainted with the offender. So it's a very loose sort of relationship typically in these cases. And that's one of the reasons this offender has really been off the radar screen. They have looked at the close friends and associates and quote-unquote logical suspects, and they've all been ruled out. This is someone who is off the grid, off the radar screen, and whose DNA has not been tested to date.
Dana's description of her attacker comports with the FBI profile. He either was a friend or a friend of a friend, but she didn't know his name. He is a single attacker. An investigation should be conducted to determine who Dana would have described as a friend. Both Sandy Ireland and Jim Ingham are still alive. They lived with Dana in Hawaii. They and possibly others can provide important information as to who Dana may have considered to be a friend. Critical would be to find neighbors in the subdivision that Dana would have described as a friend. Then identify who the friends of that person might have been. Maybe a friendly neighbor had a friend with an older Datsun pickup truck. An important part of crime investigation is to determine the victim's background. What was going on in her life? Victimology is the study of the relationship between the victim and the perpetrator. Law enforcement agencies use the study of victimology and the theories of victimology to determine why the victim was targeted by the offender. Dana Marie Ireland was born in Virginia in December of 1968. She had one sibling, a sister Sandy, who was 14 years older. The two girls were raised in Virginia. In 1991, Sandy Ireland was living with her boyfriend, Jim Ingham, on the Big Island of Hawaii. They rented a house in the Kapoho area. In the spring of 1991, Dana graduated from George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. She received her degree in physical education. Dana was 5 feet 4 inches tall, weighed 104 pounds. All of Dana's friends said she was beautiful, inside and out. She was a kind and gentle person. She was described by her sister Sandy as being very, 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 very shy. Dana moved to the Big Island in October of 1991 to live with her sister Sandy and Jim Ingham, Sandy's boyfriend. About December 8th, Jim and Sandy flew to Colorado to go skiing, leaving Dana alone in their house. On December 10th, 1991, the parents of the sisters, John and Louise Ireland, flew to the Big Island to spend the holidays with their two daughters. The parents rented the bottom of a duplex in the Kapoho Vacationland subdivision. The mother, Louise Ireland, was concerned that Dana had been left alone in Sandy's house. She insisted that Dana move in with Mom and Dad. Dana stayed in the parents' rental when Jim and Sandy returned from skiing. This map shows the location of the two rental houses. The purple pin with a P is the location of where we believe Jim Ingham and Sandy Ireland lived, 144909 Kahi Ina Place. The orange-colored pin is the location of John and Louise Ireland's rental at 144926 Kapoho Kai Drive. Judges for Justice believes that the killer knew who Dana was. He lived close, maybe next door, within viewing distance of Sandy and Jim's rental house. We believe he was a peeping Tom and fantasized about her. When he saw that she had been left alone on the nights of December 8th and 9th, he saw his chance to assault her and act out his sexual fantasy. He may have planned on attacking her on the night of December 10th, but she disappeared. The house was dark. He didn't know that she'd moved only 300 feet away to her parents' rental. He became frustrated, angry that he missed his chance. 2 weeks later, about 4:50 p.m. on Christmas Eve, he is returning from Hilo in his Datsun pickup truck, maybe last-minute Christmas shopping with the young boy. He turns onto Kapoho Kai Drive and sees a woman riding a bike. He is startled. It appears to be Dana Ireland. The object of his desire has suddenly reappeared. He slowly drives by. It's her. He stops about 20 yards short of the intersection with Ililani Road. He struggles. What is he going to do? Is he going to let this opportunity pass? He did that before and regrets it. Dana sees his stopped vehicle ahead in the left lane. She is unaware of his intentions. She rides by his stopped vehicle. He sees no cars ahead of him. He looks in the rearview mirror. No one behind him. He floors it. His tires spin. He aims his vehicle at Dana and runs her over. Maybe he tells the boy, "It was an accident. I didn't mean to hit her. Don't tell anyone or I'll get in trouble." Maybe he tells the boy, "We have to help her. Get her to the hospital." He takes off his blue Jimmy Z brand t-shirt and covers Dana's head injuries. Feigning that he's attempting to help her, he lifts her up and carries her to his truck, placing her into the bed. Eric Carl Smith sees a left leg, knee to toe, because the killer's arm is under the crook of her knee. Karina saw a kid put into the bed of the truck. Eric and Karina didn't know it then, but they probably observed Dana Ireland being put into the bed of a truck. The man was barebacked. He had no shirt. Lee Schaller drives by and sees the man. The killer drives to Crime Scene 2, a place he's probably familiar with. There he acts out his angry, lustful fantasy. When he is finished, he leaves her to die. These are the streets and address numbers of houses within the Kapoho Vacationland subdivision. If the killer and or his young male passenger lived in the subdivision, their address would be on one of these streets and within the number ranges. We have provided this document to Hawaii County law enforcement. We believe that our scenario is more than just possible. Portions may be quite probable, especially that the killer knew Dana and lived close to her. It deserves further investigation. To that end, we met with the Hawaii County Senior Deputy Prosecutor Ricky Damerville in December of 2017 to inform him of our ideas. He was receptive. Eric Carl Smith was familiar with cars. He stated that the vehicle was a Datsun, possibly a 1974 to 1978 Datsun pickup truck. Karina also said it was a Datsun. The 1991 DMV records should be checked to see if an older 1974 to 1978 Datsun pickup truck was registered at a Kapoho Vacationland address. All the elementary schools in the Puna District and Hilo area should also be checked for the 1991-92 school year. Is there a young male in grades 1 through 6 whose home address is in the Kapoho Vacationland subdivision? Our investigation showed Jim Ingham and Sandy Ireland lived at 144909 Kahi Ina Place. The killer may have lived within viewing distance of Jim and Sandy's house. There were two houses that existed back in 1991 that had a good sightline. The first was 144908 Kahi Ina Place, next door to Jim and Sandy, just to the south. This is an aerial photo taken in 2018. The house with the blue roof is Jim and Sandy's. The house with the gray roof, just to the south, has a good view into where Dana stayed. This is 144908 Kahi Ina Place. This is ground level footage of the two houses taken in 2018. The house on the left is Jim and Sandy's. The one on the right is 144908 Kahi Ina Place. This is a 2009 Google Earth view. Jim and Sandy's house is the one with the blue roof. The second house with a good line of sight is 145009 Waiopie Road, just to the north, slightly east. This house was demolished in 2014. An investigation should be conducted to determine who lived in those houses back in 1991. Was there a 10-year-old boy? Was there a man who had a Datsun pickup truck? The good news is that we have the DNA profile of the killer. He can be found. All we need is viable suspects. Judges for Justice is offering a $10,000 total reward to the person or persons who provide information leading to the identity of the man who left his DNA, bite mark, and t-shirt at the murder of Dana Ireland. A major reason for this video is to connect with that young boy, that 9 to 11-year-old boy who witnessed Dana being run over and her body put into the bed of the truck. You are now about 37 years of age. At that time, you didn't understand, but you should now. If you are that boy, or you know who that boy is, maybe a friend or the friend of a friend who confessed his concern to you, if you have any information about this crime, please come forward. Contact Senior Deputy Prosecuting Attorney for Hawaii County, Rick Damerville. His contact information is on the screen. After you have informed the prosecutor, write us at Judges for Justice, Post Office Box 46581, Seattle, Washington 98146, or email us at judgesforjustice@gmail.com. Tell us exactly why you think you know who the boy or the driver was. Tell us your contact info, address, phone number, and email. We will follow up on all viable leads. If your information leads to the identity of the man who matches the DNA profile, we will reward you with $10,000. What we know for sure is the man who was seen at Kapoho Kai Drive and Ililani Road by Karina, Eric Carlsmith, and Lee Schaller has not been identified. This is the man who left his DNA and bite mark on Dana's body and left his blue Jimmy Z t-shirt on the ground. He kidnapped, raped, and murdered another human being. The Hawaii state motto is, "The life of the land is perpetuated in righteousness." Somebody watching knows something. Put yourself on the path of righteousness. Please help. Judges for Justice respectfully requests each viewer of this video to help find Dana's killer, especially if you live in Hawaii or have Hawaii contacts. You can do this by posting this video on your Facebook page and sending the link to your email contacts. Encourage everyone you know to watch this presentation. Ask your contacts to forward the link and to post on their Facebook page. If we work together, there's nothing we cannot accomplish. We can and will catch Dana Ireland's killer. We will publish Justice for Dana Part 2, 3 Men Wrongfully Convicted, in the near future. Go to our website, www.judgesforjustice.org. Sign up to receive updates on the Dana Ireland case. When Part 2 is available, we will send you an email announcement. Please check our website on a regular basis. In Part 2, we will show how wrongful convictions happen, the Big Island wrongful conviction climate, and the power tools of wrongful convictions: tunnel vision, noble cause corruption, inflammatory media, incentivized witnesses, forensic science ignored, and government misconduct. We will show that 6 witnesses received portions of the $25,000 Ireland family reward money. We will show you how 3 convicted felons received time off their sentences or charges were dropped in exchange for their testimony against Frank Pauline and the Schweitzer brothers. We will show that Shawn Schweitzer did not pass a polygraph, and how the prosecutor's press release saying he did pass the lie detector doomed the Frank Pauline and Ian Schweitzer appeals, and much more. So please stay tuned. Thanks so much for watching Who Killed Dana Ireland, Part 1 of Justice for Dana.